Uh, all right, Olivia, we are live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Hello, I'm very happy to see
Hello.
you.
Good to see you
Thank you very,
too. Hello, everybody.
thank you very much for accepting the invitation and being our guest speaker. It's wonderful to have you today.
It's
Let's
nice
wait a
to
few
be
minutes.
here. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Let's wait a few minutes. Just our viewers can receive notifications and will join us.
Sure. I'm excited to
Mhm.
be here with you today. I love talking about
Yes.
Pennsylvania.
Yes, me too. Oh, our first viewers join us. Good afternoon, dear friends. Thank you very much for joining our session. We are very excited to continue our virtual US State Tours program. And today we are going to visit Pennsylvania State. I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker today, Olivia Stevens. She is Senior Education USA Advisor for Central Asia, former Fulbright Research Fellow, and Education USA Advisor for the Kyrgyz Republic. And today, Olivia will make a presentation about her home state, Pennsylvania. So, dear friends, please don't forget to send your questions and your comments under this video in the comment section. And after the presentation, Olivia will answer them. Thank you very much, everyone. So, let's get a trip to Pennsylvania state.
Hello, welcome. Um, I'm glad to be able to share a little bit of information about my birthplace, the wonderful state of Pennsylvania, possibly the best state in the United States. And so I have a small presentation to share with you guys. Thanks for listening. Pennsylvania, the motto of our state is pursue your happiness, which I think is a lovely thought. Um, you may notice here, this shape at the bottom of the screen is called a keystone. Pennsylvania is called the Keystone State. It it is a oh mama, I've lost something. Whoops. Um, it's called the Keystone State because as part of the original 13 colonies of the United States, it was in the very middle. Here's the state flag. You can see Pennsylvania is an agricultural area. It's technically called the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And it's part of the Mid-Atlantic region. It covers the Appalachia as well as the coastal part. And so here you can also see a picture of mountains. There are small mountains in Pennsylvania called the Appalachian Mountains. They're not as high and steep as the Tian Shan Mountains. They're very old. They used to have coal inside them, and they are also home to a long hiking trail called the Appalachian Trail. Where is Pennsylvania located? It's located in the northeast of the United States, and it's divided into 69 counties, each little area by itself. Um, one moment. Oops. Can everybody still see? It didn't disappear.
I see the slides history. Olivia?
Okay, you don't see any
Mhm.
kind of other things? Okay, great. So the history, the original people that lived in the territory of what is now known as Pennsylvania were the Algonquin Lenape in the southeastern portion. These are these two ladies in their costumes, their historical costumes that you can see. This group of people was also called the Delaware. You may know there's also a state called Delaware. It was named after this group of people. Um, the painting on the right of the man hunting a turkey, a wild turkey, of which there are many in Pennsylvania. It's a representation of the Susquehannock people. Many of the name places in America and in Pennsylvania specifically are named after the initial inhabitants. So there's a large river through the center of Pennsylvania called the Susquehanna River, named after this group of people, the Susquehannock. Another group of people that lived in the western part of the state were the Siouan Monongahela people. I decided to include this little diorama of a Monongahela dwelling. Houses that the Monongahela people built are in some ways similar to a yurt. As you can see, it's round and it's a wooden framework with skins and bark covering over it to keep the weather off. And they could be taken apart and put together, but normally they were stayed in villages in a circle of these kinds of buildings all around. You can see there's kind of multiple layers to it with a second story even inside. So, as I mentioned before, part of the history of Pennsylvania after European settlers came, Pennsylvania is one of the 13 original colonies. You can see it's the square blue one in the upper right corner. Um, it was created as part of the 1681 land grant by the King of England to William Penn, this gentleman in the black hat. Pennsylvania is named after William Penn, Penn meaning his last name, and Sylvania meaning woods. So it's the forest of Penn, Penn's forest. It's called this because most of the territory of Pennsylvania is covered with beautiful forests. The Declaration of Independence of the United States and the Constitution were drafted in Pennsylvania and signed there. Philadelphia is one of the oldest cities in the United States, and it was proposed as the original capital of the United States. Some other kind of history from the beginning. On the left bottom, you can see a painting from the Revolutionary War of the United States when America fought for independence, of a famous battle in that war that took place in Pennsylvania in Valley Forge. General Washington, the first president of the United States and general during that war, spent a terrible winter in Valley Forge during a battle between 1777 and 1778. During the Civil War of the United States, there was also some important battles that were fought in Pennsylvania, including the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. And the picture on the bottom right shows that battle. In the middle, you can see a bell. The bell has an enormous crack. This is called the Liberty Bell. It's called that because when the legend goes that when the Declaration of Independence was signed, people rang this Liberty Bell so hard to celebrate that it cracked. You can see the original bell with the crack in a museum in Philadelphia. Here are some different kinds of people that to this day live in Pennsylvania that are descendants of European settlers. The Pennsylvania Dutch people, you can see at the bottom, this is a modern photo. Pennsylvania Dutch people, it's Dutch, which comes from the word Deutsch, which is the word for German. So it sounds confusing. They're not Dutch people, they're German people or people of German descent. And they traveled to the United States to escape religious persecution. They try not to use technology, though there are different kinds of groups. Some people cannot use even technology like buttons. They have to use pins instead. Others can have electricity and Wi-Fi as long as it's not in their house. There's also the Amish. Some of you may have seen some reality TV shows that were even broadcast in Kyrgyzstan about Amish people who live by these same rules and their different kinds of ways of life. The Quakers, for example, this gentleman up in the top, you may see that his hat is very similar to William Penn's hat. It's because it's part of their traditional dress. The Quakers were a religious group called the Society of Friends. Their main philosophy is a philosophy of peace. And they have oatmeal named after them, and this is the brand of the oatmeal. So some of the main industries in Pennsylvania were originally steel and coal and rail mining coal. Right now, Pennsylvania is the first producer of mushrooms, as well as apples, Christmas trees, chickens, and racehorses. You may have noticed that on the flag of Pennsylvania, there are 2 horses. And so raising racehorses is an important part of southeastern Pennsylvania. In southeastern Pennsylvania, one of the largest cities is called Philadelphia. You may know Philadelphia from people that you know that may have visited, or in the left, you can see Rocky, the boxer. This movie takes place in Philadelphia. Here's the Philadelphia skyline with the Delaware River crossing through it, as well as in the bottom right, you can see a mummer. A mummer is a Philadelphia kind of tradition of on New Year's, there's a special parade of people in very elaborate costumes, playing instruments and marching through the streets. Also, you can see this funny guy that's doing a dance with a hockey stick. Sports are very large in Pennsylvania, with the 2 competing rival teams in the 2 larger cities of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And this is Gritty, the mascot for the hockey team. There's also for baseball, the Philadelphia Phillies and the Philadelphia Eagles are the football team. There's very important rivalries between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh is the other largest city. You can see here it's by 2 rivers. One of the rivers around Pittsburgh is called Monongahela, just like the people that used to live here. Pittsburgh is originally a steel town producing steel for railroads. If you've heard of Carnegie, Carnegie was based here. One of the most richest people in the turn of the century. Andy Warhol, the artist that created these really famous pictures in the style of pop art, is from Pittsburgh, as well as the beloved children's television producer, Mr. Rogers. Pennsylvania is known as the snack food capital of the United States, and this title is rightly earned. There is tons of snack foods that are specific to Pennsylvania that people get really passionate about. One of those is pretzels. Pretzels are a kind of German bread. They come in hard varieties, like a cracker, and they're also soft ones. The soft ones are very popular in Pennsylvania. This is a picture you can see with the little knotted bread with the salt on it. This is a picture of a soft pretzel. People love soft pretzels, and you can buy them fresh. And some of the largest pretzel producers are in Pennsylvania. A famous world countrywide chain of soft pretzel makers was originally founded in my hometown of Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and became very famous. Also, potato chips. Some of the largest producers of potato chips are based in Pennsylvania, including hers. And potato chips are a very beloved snack. There's also a famous chocolate factory called the Hershey Chocolate Factory. This chocolate factory is so huge that it's almost it's a town in Pennsylvania, and the factory portion is like a second town right outside of it. You can drive past and you can smell the smell of chocolate cooking as you go by. There's also a famous amusement park there that's part of that. So many families come as an attraction to visit the chocolate factory and ride on the rides and see everything there and try the different treats that they make. There are other German foods and Pennsylvania Dutch foods that are kind of based from German settlers. One of them is called a Fashnacht. It's a special donut that is cooked. And this piece of pie up at the top is called shoe fly pie. It's called shoe fly pie because it's so sweet that all the flies will come and land on it. So shoe is the word that we use in English to say go away to some kind of animal that's bothering us. So the shoe fly pie, which is so sweet that it brings flies everywhere. Also, the most famous producer of ketchup in the United States, Heinz, has a factory in Pennsylvania. There's special sandwiches that are part of the culture of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. One of them you can see here is a cheesesteak. It's a special sandwich on a long piece of bread, which is almost the size of your arm, with meat and onions and cheese on it. Another kind of special sandwich is from the Pittsburgh area, and it has French fries inside the sandwich. Here at the bottom, you can see a plate are stuffed with something, and then they're boiled or fried. These are one of the most popular foods in Pennsylvania because there's lots of Polish people that moved to Pennsylvania. And so I'd like to show you again just the kind of picture of where Pennsylvania is and what it looks like. So Pennsylvania is a large rectangle, and in the eastern part is the city of Philadelphia, in the western part is the city of Pittsburgh, in the very center is Harrisburg, the capital. And so it's one of the larger states that we have in the United States, 67 counties. It touches the Great Lakes, where Niagara Falls is, up in the northwestern corner, and almost touches the ocean in the southeastern corner. The Appalachian Mountains run right through the middle, and so a person that is walking on the Appalachian Trail can walk all the way from the very top of the country through to Georgia, which is in almost the very bottom. So a person can walk on foot all the way down the coast of the United States. I'd like to bring your attention also to the state flag. As I mentioned, horses are a very important part of agriculture in Pennsylvania. Bald eagles, the mascot kind of our country, they also live in Pennsylvania. I wish I could share a picture with you. My parents had a bald eagle land in their yard the other day. And so wildlife is also very active. As I mentioned before, there are lots of turkeys, wild turkeys that live in Pennsylvania, as well as wild deer, even black bears, and other animals that live in Pennsylvania. One of the coolest things in Pennsylvania that a person could go and visit is that there is a wolf sanctuary. This is a place where wolves that have been injured are taken to be rehabilitated and to live. And so people can come and look at the wolves. It's quite large, and they're kept in very good conditions, and they're given lots of good care and then eventually released. And so this is kind of all I have to share with you about the information of Pennsylvania. I hope that it was interesting for you. And I would love to hear any kinds of questions that you may have about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Mhm. Olivia, thank you very much for the incredible presentation. We had an amazing trip to Pennsylvania State, and I really like the snacks that you showed. Thank you very much. And dear friends, please send your questions in the comment section, and now Olivia will answer them. The first question, Olivia, for you. What are famous universities located in Pennsylvania?
There are many famous universities located in Pennsylvania. One of the most famous ones is the University of Pennsylvania. It's kind of confusing because they all have some similar names. So there's the University of Pennsylvania, which is a member of the famous Ivy League. It's located in Philadelphia. It's one of the oldest universities, and it's one of the first universities, if I'm not mistaken, not the first universities to accept women as well as men. It's huge, and it has a hospital as part of the university medical school. It takes up a large territory of the city of Philadelphia. Some of the other famous universities are University of Pennsylvania, and then there's Penn State University, which is very different. It's a government school located in the very center of the state. The city that it is located in is called State College because it is the only thing that is there. It's a town that has sprung up around the university. It's very famous for its sports. And so Penn State University has a football team, which is one of the most famous football teams in America. And lots of people travel there to watch the American football that they play. Pittsburgh also has multiple famous universities. There is the University of Pittsburgh, of course, as well as Carnegie Mellon University, which is very famous, great university. Pennsylvania, because it's one of the oldest states, also has a lot of the oldest universities in the United States, including Dickinson College, where I went to university in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which was funded in 1776. There's also Gettysburg College, which was funded about the same time, Swarthmore. And there are religious universities as well, such as Immaculata College, which is a famous university that was originally only for women and run by nuns.
Wow, so many great universities
I
Pennsylvania
recommend
State
that
have.
everyone loves. There's also different
Yes.
institutes for specialities such as art and design and engineering separately.
Wow, it's really nice. Thank you very much, Olivia. So we started to receive comments. Everyone is happy to see you. Like, glad to see you, ladies. Hi, Olivia. Nice to see you.
Hello, Ms.
Hello, Olivia. Nice to see you. And
Thank you for sharing
also,
comments.
hello, Olivia. Nice to see you and hear you. Great regards to your family from Mosh American Corner staff. What similarities or differences you can say between Pennsylvania and Kyrgyzstan?
Oh, thank you, Erali. That's a great question. I think that Pennsylvania is very diverse. It's so big, and there's large cities and countryside as well. And so some of the cities are so big that they're much bigger than even Bishkek is. So that's one difference. However, I think that in the countryside, any countryside that you go to anywhere in the world has a lot of similarities to it. And so if you go to the countryside in Pennsylvania from the countryside in Kyrgyzstan, you would feel very much at home because people there are very welcoming and they love to feed you. They love to overfeed you as much as possible. You may have noticed from our snacks that American people in Pennsylvania, just like Kyrgyz people, are very passionate about their food and what kinds of things they have.
That's
I
true.
think that's a big similarity. So people love to eat and then to feed other people. Culturally, I think that there's some things that are are very similar in that people like try to be as welcoming as possible. And so even if you're in the countryside and you have a problem and you just go to somebody's house, they will take you inside and they'll take care of you and they'll try and help you and they might try and make you stay even if you don't want to stay. Um, so that's something that's very similar with Pennsylvania. As I mentioned before, too, Pennsylvania does have mountains. And so I think there is a lot of love that people have in Pennsylvania for the nature that is around them, which is similar to Kyrgyzstan, even though the mountains themselves are very different. Um,
Mm,
yes. And so
okay.
those, I think, are
Thank
similarities
you.
very much. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Olivia. I
You're
think we have
welcome.
similar question. Is there anything in Kyrgyzstan that reminds you Pennsylvania?
Is
Pennsylvania.
there anything in Kyrgyzstan that reminds me of Pennsylvania? Well, it's interesting. Um, I think I mentioned in the area where I'm from, southeastern Pennsylvania, it's famous for raising racehorses. And so this is
Mm-hmm.
something that is sometimes similar in Kyrgyzstan, where people get really passionate about raising these horses for sport, and it becomes like a very intense
Yes.
industry of people really competing. And that was one thing that I thought was interesting and similar. Um, Let me see. Another common thing in Pennsylvania specifically is people in the countryside living with their extended families, with multiple kind of generations and lots of cousins that live close by. And this is very similar to my life in Kyrgyzstan.
Wow, great. Thank you very much, Olivia. So I always call it like Pennsylvania, but it's Pennsylvania. Yes.
Yes. So it's
I
funny in
used to
English
like.
the way that the letter A can be pronounced so many different ways. It's very tricky. But we pronounce
Yes.
it Pennsylvania. And even in
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, something that's funny, it's a large state, and there are different
Mm-hmm.
accents in the different parts of Pennsylvania, even though you would think that in one state everyone would talk similarly. So people can
Mm-hmm.
have a very strong accent. And actually, Pennsylvania Dutch people, who are the descendants of German people that came,
Mm-hmm.
they speak a variety of German, even in their families to this day. So some of my classmates speak Pennsylvania Dutch as their first language. And they have a special accent and some special words that they use even when they're speaking English. Um, and so that's something that's unusual. And it's a very old kind of German. It's not like modern German,
Mm-hmm.
which is very
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
It's very interesting. Thank you very much, Olivia.
You're
The next
welcome.
question for you. What is the most popular sport in Pennsylvania?
Most popular sport throughout all of Pennsylvania is American football, 100%. However, ice hockey is very popular as well, with these two rival teams in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh being extremely popular, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia Flyers. And so, actually, now I think that ice hockey season is open because I've been seeing lots of things about people doing trainings. um, we're also in the northwestern corner of Pennsylvania. It borders one of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie. This is a lake which is smaller than Issyk, but extremely large, and it freezes over. And so there's lots of ice sports that people have there. There's also
Mm-hmm.
skiing. Part of the small mountains in Pennsylvania are called the Poconos, and this is a tourist destination also. They're tiny mountains, but people go there to go skiing always.
Mm-hmm. Olivia?
Yes, I'm still here.
Olivia, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, I lost you. Maybe my connection is bad. Oh, great. Thank you, Olivia. Uh-huh. Oh, great. Thank you, Olivia. The next question for you. What are unusual or extraordinary facts you want to share about Pennsylvania?
So Pennsylvania, has anybody seen this thing that people do? It's a game, like a challenge online, where you put in something in Google and the first kind of response that Google gives to you. So like,
Mm-hmm.
why are dogs so silly or something like that, right? You ask Google a question and it will answer you. If you put in why is Pennsylvania so, the first thing that will come back is haunted, meaning that there are ghosts, and there are lots of ghosts in Pennsylvania. And so
Mm,
every small town in Pennsylvania has lots of ghost stories. In the town that I grew up in,
wow.
Downingtown, Pennsylvania, there are at least 4 places that everybody agreed there were ghosts. Um, I haven't ever seen a ghost, but almost any place that you go in Pennsylvania, they will say that something is haunted. And actually, this turns into, in our fall season, this turns into a huge thing. People grow lots of corn in Pennsylvania, and so one of the businesses that people do in the fall, if they have a farm, is that they do a haunted farm or a haunted house, where they hire actors to come and scare people, and people pay money to come and be scared. I think you
Oh,
probably see this in movies. But this is a really popular thing. People do it all fall long, where they'll go to a farm and they'll pick apples. Um, they make labyrinths out of corn. After you harvest the corn, then the corn stalks they get left, and
mhm.
people will make a special labyrinth, and you will try and get out of it. Sometimes they'll have a scary labyrinth where people will chase you and try and scare you. Sometimes there's one for children with different games and animals to play with. Um,
Mhm.
but there's also a famous penitentiary, which is the term for a large prison. And this penitentiary was supposed to be very haunted. It's no longer working, but it's been turned into a big haunted house where people go there
Mm,
um, to be scared and say that there are ghosts there. I don't
wow.
know the ghosts, but people say that there are lots of ghosts in it.
It's yes, it's a fascinating
It's
fact.
people
Thank you
in
very much,
Pennsylvania are very
Olivia.
superstitious. There
Yes.
is one thing that's also similar
The
to
next
Kyrgyzstan, a
question
small
for you.
example.
Uh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
mhm,
In Pennsylvania Dutch culture, they have a special thing like a tumar, which is a sign that people make to ward off bad spirits, and so it's called a hex sign, and it's
mhm,
really similar to
mhm.
some of the ones that are in Kyrgyz traditional design. Um, so there's like if you've seen
No.
like a gusmunchuk, which is like out of kurak, so it's like different overlapping fabric. This
Mhm.
is the same design in Kyrgyzstan and in Pennsylvania that's used to like ward off bad spirits.
No. Really? Wow, it's
So
cool. Thank you very much, Olivia. Uh, one more question. Is there any alternative title or sort of nickname for the state? Like, for example, Massachusetts, it's called like Texas-chusetts as a joke because of high tax rates.
so yes, Pennsylvania has its official like nickname, which is the Keystone State. The Pennsylvania, because the two
Mm-hmm.
largest cities are on the east and the western side, the center has a special name, and it's called, that's where I'm from. It's called Pennsyltucky, which is a combination of
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania and Kentucky, because
Kentucky.
Kentucky is a state that's considered to be very like remote and far away from everything, where people are like people that live up in the mountains, and there's like no cities or anything there. And the center part of Pennsylvania is called the same thing. So I'm from Pennsylvania.
It's interesting. Thank you very much, Olivia. What is the best time to visit Pennsylvania State?
I think the fall is the very best time because then you can participate in all these fun cultural activities. Also, there are Native American meetings that happen, which are called powwows, in the fall as well as part of like the harvest season. And there's lots of delicious things to eat.
Mm-hmm.
One of apples is one of the largest production in Pennsylvania, and so you can drive from any city like of only a little distance and go to an apple orchard, and you can not only pick and eat the apples, but you can drink apple cider, which is kwashime apple juice, and so
Mm-hmm.
you can try these treats, and they make special ponchiki and things with the apples, and it's very delicious. And so fall is the best time to visit.
Mm-hmm. Olivia?
Yes,
Oh,
thank you.
do you hear me? I'm really
No
sorry. Sometimes I
problem.
lost you. I think because of my yes bad connection. We're really sorry. The next question. What do you like the most about Pennsylvania, about your home state?
One of the things that I look forward to doing every time when I come back to Pennsylvania is driving, which is very funny. I hate driving in Bishkek because I'm scared of driving in the city. But in Pennsylvania, in the countryside, it's always very fun to drive because this is the only way you can get anywhere. There's not very much public transportation in the regions, and so people have to travel by car.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots and lots of hills and rivers, and it's very beautiful. And so whenever you come driving in Pennsylvania, you could see no people, and you would just drive along these small rivers and hills, and it's beautiful. The part of Pennsylvania that I'm from, which I think is especially beautiful, looks a lot like where the hobbits live in The Lord of the Rings. So it's little green hills and farms and trees and forests.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's cool. Thank you very much, Olivia. So, how many states did you visit?
Ooh, I've driven, I've visited many states because I've driven south to Florida and I've driven
Mm-hmm.
west to Texas and west to Minnesota. So I would have to look at a map to count them all. But I've spent most time in Pennsylvania, in Texas, in Wisconsin, in Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
and Georgia and Louisiana. And they're all very different. I hope that some of our visitors will someday be able to come to America when travel is possible again and get to travel and see, maybe on the work and travel program, maybe if you're studying, maybe if you're working or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, and get to travel and see how huge America is and how different it is in all the states.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I see. Thank you very much, Olivia. So, what makes unique Pennsylvania state from other states?
I would say that it has very specific culture that has been saved from
Mm-hmm.
this older time. So a lot of times, I mean, I don't mean to criticize any other state, but a lot of other states can be kind of different cities can be very similar to each other. We talk about the Midwest as being kind of like a general place, and lots of the cities in the Midwest have lots of things in common. But I think Pennsylvania is
Mm-hmm.
very unique and it's unusual, and it has its kind of like own culture inside itself, which is very different from other
Mm-hmm.
people.
Thank you, Olivia. One more question. What museums are in Pennsylvania? Are they for free? And if museums and libraries are open now?
So there are lots of museums in Pennsylvania. For instance, the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Some people may have seen, if you've ever seen the Rocky movie, like the culminating
Mm-hmm.
moment of Rocky's training, he like runs up these enormous steps, and that's the steps to the art museum. The art museum in Philadelphia is huge. It's impossible to see all of the exhibitions in one day. It takes multiple days to be able to go to each of them. This is my favorite museum that I've ever been to, even though I've been to Moscow, I've visited lots of museums, I've been to the Prado in Spain, I've been to museums in England, the British Museum, and they're all fantastic, but the Philadelphia Museum of Art is my very favorite museum. Other museums in Philadelphia include the Ben Franklin Institute. Ben Franklin, you may know him from the $100 bill. He's bald, he has long
Mm-hmm.
hair, little glasses. And he's very famous as like one of the original politicians in America, but he was also an inventor. And so, in his honor, this museum was open, but it's a unique museum where it's interactive. And so, it's especially good for children. Many school groups will go there to visit. Um, and so, it has different things like experiments with electricity that you can do, experiments with machinery that the children can go and work on. Experiments that you can do. There's a giant model of a heart, which is
Mm-hmm.
like 2 stories tall, with all the veins are like slides, and you can crawl inside and see how a human heart looks. This is a really cool museum. There's also a museum called the Mutter Museum, which is a German word, and it is an old museum that is full of different oddities, meaning different biological things. So, like skeletons, and
Mm-hmm.
like if a person had some weird, like giant liver, they put the liver in a jar and they put it in this museum. It's a very creepy museum, but it's very unique as a place to visit. There's also the Museum of Natural History. Um, there are lots of art museums. There's a family of painters that's native to Pennsylvania called the Wyeths, which are very
Mm-hmm.
famous in the US. And they have a museum that's a small distance away from my family's home, which is called the Brandywine River Museum, which is also a very nice one. And in Pittsburgh, there's museums in honor of Carnegie, and there's also museums that are for Andrew Warhol, who I showed a picture of some of his works, which you Marilyn Monroe in these bright colors. His
Mhm.
museum is also there. If they're free, this is a good question. Some of them are free. For instance, some of them are free sometimes. So, for
Mhm.
instance, the art museum in Philadelphia is free like the last Sunday of every month. Um, and they have special days when people can go. Or if you're a student or a pensioner, you can get a special free pass. They also have kind of visiting exhibitions, and sometimes you can enter the museum for free, but to see the special paintings that they brought from somewhere else, you
Mhm.
can't see it for free. One of the best free museums in Philadelphia is the Rodin Museum. So Rodin was a French sculptor who did the thinker, this famous sculpture, the guy going like this. Um, and these, it's unusual for a French sculptor to have a museum in Philadelphia, um, obviously, but they're all, many of his works in original, in marble, in plaster, in bronze are there, and it is always free. And it's one of the most beautiful places to visit in Philadelphia.
Mm, wow. Thank you very much for detailed answer, Olivia. So I visited Philadelphia, I think, 6 years ago, and the buildings were really beautiful and had have like red color. So maybe it's like does it something mean? I mean, so
Yes.
so these
So the
buildings in
skyline of
Philadelphia has like
Philadelphia,
red color.
Philadelphia has a special skyline with these different modern buildings, and in the
Mm-hmm.
very center of town, there's the City Hall, which is an old building with like a cupola on it, and it has a boulevard that goes straight to the Art Museum, which is also an older style kind of romantic building. But the main glass buildings, they have
Mm-hmm.
colored lights on them, and these change thematically depending on what's going on. I don't know what was happening 6 years ago where they were all red, but it's normally in support of some kind of cause or for some kind of holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, around Valentine's Day or
Oh.
something, they will do different colors, and they will color, like they'll put food coloring in the fountains and stuff for like thematically.
Oh.
Or for instance, when the football team, the Eagles, are playing like a special game, then their colors are green, so they light all the buildings
Mm-hmm.
up green, and so people get very
Oh.
excited about the colors
Oh.
of the city.
The states show their support to teams.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Olivia. And the next question for you. What are your advice or recommendation to people who want to visit Pennsylvania state?
Um, I would recommend, if you're visiting as a tourist, to give yourself time to travel by car. There is a train system in Pennsylvania. However, it only goes in like one straight line right across the country. And so you
Mm-hmm.
won't be able to go out and kind of see all the different things. But if you're traveling by car, there's lots of the main routes going across Pennsylvania, and you'll see lots of interesting things and get to meet a lot more people than you would traveling by train.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Olivia, for your advice. I think it is our last question, and thank you, Olivia, for wonderful presentation you did for us. It was really informative, interesting, and very useful. And I think it's time to say goodbye to everyone. And also, I would like to say thank you to our viewers who sent their questions and leave their comments. Thank you for your active participation. And please stay healthy and see you soon in our next sessions. Have a great day. Bye bye, everyone.